Now I would like to welcome Terry Phillips, who's running for Congress. Terry, welcome to Radio Awaaz Punjab. We have had a chance to meet before.
Yes.
Please tell us about a little bit yourself to our listeners, Mr. Terry Phillips.
Well, let me begin by also thanking you for inviting me here today. It's always a pleasure to talk to people in our district. I've learned a lot about the place where we live in the last year that I've been a candidate, and the most amazing thing is how much variety we have here. It's a very large district. You know, it covers 3 counties, about 10,000 square miles. We have more than 800,000 people living here. I was born in the Central Valley. I was born in Fresno. I am a journalist by training. I've lived and worked around the world. I used to be a correspondent for CBS News and covered conflicts in many places around the world and all over this country as well. And I was a little shocked when I came back to the Central Valley to find out that in politics, not only was there so much tension, so much conflict among people living here, but also that the political choices were very limited, that we only had one name on the ballot in election after election. So people encouraged me to consider becoming a candidate. As a journalist, I've never had any partisan political aspirations, but I've covered politics a lot in my career. So it was a challenging question for me to decide to do this. But there were so many people who were so frustrated, not just by the lack of choice, but by the person who was representing us, that I finally agreed to do this. And that's why I'm here.
How many endorsements that you have gotten so far from the local communities and other organizations? Can you talk about that?
Sure. And the first endorsement that I want to mention was the most recent one that we received from the mayor of Ridgecrest. And I was very gratified that this courageous political leader, courageous civic leader, and longtime educator would agree to endorse me. I've been endorsed by both businesses and by labor organizations. The California Federation of Labor has endorsed me, as have local unions, local business owners. The most recent one I had from business was the Coalition of Minority Business Owners for San Joaquin Valley. And all of this leads me to believe that there's more to this than just one guy thinking it's a good idea to run for office. It's really been very gratifying.
That's excellent. If I ask you to tell a handful or 1, 2, or 4 major differences than your opponent, how would you say it?
Sure. And first I should say that I'm running against Kevin McCarthy, who
Correct.
is from here also, and he has represented this district both in Sacramento and in Washington. He is the leader or a leader of his party, and that is one of the things that distinguishes us. I am an independent. I don't belong to a political party. As many people do, I started out in life in the party of my parents. I was a Democrat, but then when I became a journalist, I thought it was better for me not to have a party affiliation. So that's one thing that distinguishes us. And in fact, not only is he a leader of his party, he votes along party lines 97% of the time. There's nothing wrong with parties, but no party is perfect. Human beings are not perfect. We make mistakes. And I feel that part of his handicap is that he doesn't really have a choice. He has to stick with his party because that's part of his job. He's the majority whip of his party. His job is to corral other members of his party to vote the same way. I don't have that problem. On the contrary, I am supported by Democrats, Republicans, and others like me who have no party affiliation.
What is the, besides that he votes for the party,
Mm-hmm.
and besides he just been in the position because never had any competition before.
That's right.
What are the other major differences we need to talk about?
Sure. Well, let's talk about the thing that is on most people's minds right now, which is the economy. We've got massive unemployment in this country. We've made some gains over the last 4 years, but still there are tens of millions of people who are looking for work. And Mr. McCarthy has voted consistently against projects that would create more jobs. He's been inconsistent on one project in particular, and that's the high-speed rail project. When there was a Republican governor of California, I go back to this question of partisanship, when the governor of California was a Republican, Mr. McCarthy was all for it. In fact, he wrote a letter to Governor Schwarzenegger encouraging him to put the high-speed rail on the ballot.
I remember that.
Now that he's facing a Democrat in the State House, suddenly Mr. McCarthy is against high-speed rail. The fact is, high-speed rail is a necessary project. It's been presented in a complicated way and not very well, but It is something that we need not just for transportation, not just because it will mitigate our air quality problems, but it's a great jobs program. And that's one thing that distinguishes us. I also hasten to point out that Mr. McCarthy is opposed to health care for everyone. I think everyone deserves access to basic health care. And it's not just a moral matter, it's a financial matter. Health care costs in this country eat up about 1/5 of our total GDP. It's the greatest threat to our economy. We need to have something resembling universal access to basic health care. It's a cost measure. It's a moral issue. I think it's unacceptable for people to die in this country because they're too poor to have access to basic health care. It's something else that distinguishes me from my opponent.
So basically talked about if you look at the top two or three, one is an economy, second is the railroad or the speed rail is a part of the economy that
Right.
that brings the job
Yeah.
and stuff, and then he votes along the party lines. He changes his decision, depends on who's the leader of the government. When we talk about the economy, we have been talking this for about the 3 election terms,
Mm-hmm.
right when Bush started, through his 2 terms, and now President Obama. And everyone kind of blames President Obama right now for the economy, but unfortunately, even some of the educated Republicans, they do understand if they want to not talk about the party lines, if they want to talk about with all the honesty of heart, this was handed on to President Obama. You can't fix a economy which took you 8 years to bring it down into the largest recession almost, and then turn in 4 years. Whatever President Obama has done so far, that is going to all go down the drain if for some reason other people take over.
There's something else I think people need to understand, which is that the President of the United States has limited power. We say he's the most powerful man in the world, or one of the most powerful people in the world. The fact is, the power of the President in large part is derived from Congress. If you don't like your tax rate, talk to Congress. Congress is the one that establishes the income tax rates. If you don't like how much money the government is spending, talk to Congress. Congress allocates all of the funds that the government spends. The President, of course, has some power. He's got a leading role in foreign affairs, for example, and we can talk about that. But in terms of domestic responsibility, most of that is in the hands of Congress. And this Congress, because of the extreme partisanship that's going on in Washington, is going down in history as the least productive Congress in the history of the United States. And at a time when we need people to work together, to do work for us, it's unacceptable. And that's something I blame my opponent for. He's been leading this obstructionist effort in Congress.
You said it so right that we must believe in the process. We must believe in voting for a person, not for the party. There are so many Republicans that I like or dislike, so many Democrats I like and dislike. But when I go to the voting booth, I vote for the person. I see Mr. Resham Singh might have a question for you.
Yeah, I just want to ask Mr. Terry that what kind of different plans you have for the city or county for, like, we are talking about the economy, right? So we were talking about the education, we are talking about the health plans, healthcare, high-speed rails. So all these are related to the economy. So basically, what kind of planning you have in your mind that which can bring up the economy and give some release to the people?
I'm glad you used the word planning,
Yeah.
because oftentimes we approach problems with a short-term point of view. We think about today, tomorrow, maybe next year, but we don't look way down the road, and we have to do that. With respect to healthcare, for example, people are concerned that their healthcare costs have been going up since the passage of the healthcare reform. Well, the fact is that healthcare costs always go up. The rate of increase is being slowed down because of this new law. We need to go further than that. I don't think the new healthcare law is enough. We don't, for example, have the right to negotiate collectively for the price of pharmaceuticals. I don't think it's right that people in other countries should be able to pay less for the drugs that are manufactured in our country than we do. So that's a long-term perspective that we should be going further than we are on healthcare. The best thing we can do for our economy, of course, is to invest in education. And again, people say, well, we don't have the money, we're running in a deficit, and so forth. I remind people that during the Great Depression, we built Hoover Dam. We built the Grand Coulee Dam. We built the Golden Gate Bridge. And the country had no money. We were broke. 1 out of 4 people was unemployed. We can do this, but we have to look down the road. We can't just have a short-term view of our solutions.
I was listening to your debate with Kevin McCarthy on, I think it was 17 or 23.
Yes, it's Channel 17.
You were on. And his biggest the concern was on the speed rail. You know, when they asked him what's the major difference that you have with Terry Phillips, they said, there's one.
Mm-hmm.
Out of one speed rail,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants speed rail, that's the one. And then when he talked about that, you know, hey, we don't have money to build this. This is going to cost more and more money. That's exactly what he said that I really liked, and so many other people who were sitting in a group with the family, they liked that. They say, hey, do you believe in the United States of America or you don't? We built the Golden Bridge. We built so many other projects, so we'll go through this too. Plus, this creates jobs for the Kern County. Now, can you tell me how many jobs would it create for Kern County if the speed rail goes through?
I can't tell you precisely because the numbers keep changing depending on which plan we are looking at. And that's been part of the problem with the high-speed rail, is that the plans have been inconsistent and they've been controversial. The public has not been as involved in the process as many people would like. But certainly it will create thousands of jobs. And it's not just the jobs that are created to build and maintain the high-speed rail. It's the jobs that are created because the economy overall will improve as a result of this transportation system, especially here in Kern County, where we will have, and I should say beyond Kern County, because as I mentioned, the district also includes northern Los Angeles County. So we'll actually have 2 high-speed rail stations, one in Bakersfield and one probably in Lancaster, and those communities will also benefit from the additional influx of travelers. And the history of rail in general, and especially of high-speed rail, is that when there is a station in your community, it attracts more business. And then beyond all that, of course, the high-speed rail will be a great advantage for our economy because it will allow us to move people and, to a certain extent, material. It's primarily a passenger service, but we can move light goods on it also, and it will lower the overall cost of transportation.
The other thing which Mr. Resham Singh also touched about, you know, we talked about building economy. This high-speed rail is a good example of it. What else can we do for the local businessmen here too? Because this country's economy depends on the small businesses.
That's right.
We all know that.
That's right.
The large businesses have maybe a 10% of economy, but the small businesses have the rest of the economy is based on small businesses. So what's your plan on small business?
In addition to being a journalist, in addition to being an employee, I'm also a small business owner. My opponent likes to say that his solution to our economic problems is cut taxes, cut regulations, cut services. On taxes, nobody likes paying taxes. I don't like paying taxes. You could reduce my business tax to 0, and I still wouldn't hire anybody. Jobs are created because of customer demand. If we inject more resources into the economy, there will be more money for businesses. But I think we have to look much further than just today. I am in favor of, for example, creating more public-private partnerships. I've spent a lot of time in the Bay Area. I went to school there, I lived there. Silicon Valley doesn't just exist because it's a nice place to live. It exists because of all of the forces that came into play, including education. And we talked a little bit about that. We need to invest more, not just in education generally, but specifically in these subjects that are in such great demand, the so-called STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, math. We don't have master's programs at our local university. We also have a small university, I mean physically small. We don't have these expansive campuses like some other communities do. But we are great beneficiaries of, as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, of the diversity of this community. Human diversity and diversity of work. We haven't talked about the energy sector or about agriculture, but these are some of the great advantages that we have. We can bring all of these things together People talk about it's the 21st century, all of this wonderful stuff that's happening. I like to remind people there are children being born today who are going to see the 22nd century. We need to be preparing them not for today's jobs, for tomorrow's jobs and beyond.
Well, that's excellent. We talked about how to build the economy. We talked about the small businesses and stuff. Naresh, something you have any
I just have one question. We are talking about small businesses because I do very small business, and there's a question in my mind that the big businesses are challenging the small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have we have a small business. When we open any big supermarket or anything, they buy the stuff in big volumes, so they don't have any price control. So sometimes the price of our sale is equal to their cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that way we are losing business every day. So is there, or anybody thinks about this, like if we can do any kind of price control on that?
We have tried price controls in this country, we've tried wage controls in this country, and
right.
Every plan that I've ever heard of and every plan that I've ever seen brings with it risks. The free marketplace should not be totally free, of course. That's not democracy or capitalism, that's chaos. So, of course, some incentives are a good idea. We used to have laws in this country that prohibited monopolies. Well, those laws have gradually been eaten up to the point now where big companies not just compete unfairly, but buy small businesses, and small businesses are disappearing. Without naming any specific company, we all know that there are these predatory firms that make it really hard for the so-called mom and pop businesses to get by. What I would like to see at the federal level, because I'm running for a federal position, what I'd like to see at the federal level is a return to the day when we were enforcing the laws prohibiting monopolies. And I think that would help small businesses a lot.
That's good. Yeah. I think it's a good idea, and I think that will solve some kind of problems for the small businesses we are facing about. And the second thing is about the crime rate.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved from Los Angeles County to Kern County, that was totally different, like 8-9 years ago.
Mm.
Now we are living in Kern County, and we know what kind of problems we are facing.
Yeah.
And if I don't know about the other people, but I can tell about myself. My store was broken like 9 times in 9 years. So I think whenever we call, then there are priorities for the police forces.
Mm-hmm.
And in other words, we can say that we don't have enough police force or other forces which can help the public.
Yeah.
So what do you think about it?
I'll say two things. Specifically with respect to the police force, one of the things that shocks me is that our police department has been without a contract for almost 6 years. These are men and women who put their lives on the line for us to protect us every day, and still the city of Bakersfield has not seen fit to give them a contract. That's something that I would encourage our current congressman to help change. He is, as he likes to say, fourth generation Bakersfield. He knows everybody. I don't understand why he doesn't pick up the phone and say to members of the city council and to the mayor, we really have to do something about this. It's not a question of whether unions are good or bad. This is a matter of decency. We need to protect the people who protect us. But on the larger issue of crime, people, again, like to focus on the short-term issues. And I understand. It's your shop. You need to deal with daily problems. But the long-term solution to dealing with crime is dealing with poverty. When times are good, people are less inclined to commit crimes, especially economic crimes. You don't have to steal if you have everything you need, or enough anyway. But we have the unfortunate position in Kern County of being, I think it is, the 4th poorest community in the United States. This is unacceptable to me. We need to focus on making sure that everybody in our community has at least the minimum, at least the basics. And one of the things I respect so much about the Sikh community is that you are, by your very nature, a non-violent community. So when you are faced with violence, it's a difficult challenge for you. And I also don't like violence. I've seen it firsthand as a war correspondent. I've covered crime as a news reporter. And I think we have a responsibility as a community for ourselves and for everyone else to address the causes of crime and the causes of violence. And that means focusing on poverty, and that comes back to education.
One other, I would like to switch the gears just a little bit. Let's talk about the regulations in California.
Okay.
Why the businesses are leaving California because of the toughest regulations. And our border states like the Arizona and Nevada, they're standing at the border with the open arms. Come on, Californians, we'll take you without any regulations. So that also is a huge problem in our view for losing all those tax dollars, losing all those businesses and jobs to the neighboring states. What's your thought on that?
I'd like to talk about Mojave, which has this wonderful spaceport. It's been on the forefront of aviation technology, and one of the biggest companies in the United States, Excor, just moved to Texas because they were offered not just lower regulatory restrictions, but tax incentives. Now, we can't change or eliminate all regulations. Getting rid of regulations was what caused this financial mess that we're in. But there are good regulations and bad regulations. There are regulations that make no sense. They've been on the books forever. They get enforced inconsistently. And maybe one of the things we need to do as a state and as a country is to step back a little bit and re-examine the whole list of regulations. Maybe it's time for something like a blue ribbon commission to study what regulations work and what regulations don't, and to include business owners. It should not just be politicians who make these decisions. And I hate to keep beating up on my opponent. I find myself debating an empty chair every time I speak. But the fact is, he's not here. He talks about transparency. He's not transparent. He's the invisible man. We never see him. We need to have him spend more time, or whoever the congressman is, I would certainly spend more time in the community, working with business owners, working with other government officials to try to solve some of these problems. I don't pretend to have any magic wand that I can wave to make problems like overregulation go away. The solution is to work with everybody, and that brings me back to the very first thing we talked about, which is the lack of cooperation between the parties. I don't have that problem. I play well with others. Unfortunately, my opponent is exactly the opposite.
You talked about the empty chair, and one number came to my mind, the Clint Eastwood.
Yes, yes. I should probably write him a nice thank you note.
Mr. Singh, do you have any other questions before?
I think, yeah.
I would like for you to, the next 2 or 3 minutes, talk about that. Why is it important for you to be a congressman, for you to win this election? And you have 3 minutes to tell our listeners why they should vote for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your kind attention. I know that so many people are fed up with politics these days. I'm fed up with politics these days. It was never my intention to become a candidate, but I considered it my duty to participate in this process. I consider it your duty to participate in this process. I hope you're registered. I hope you will vote. And when you vote, I hope you'll consider 3 things. First of all, is your life better today than it was before my opponent started to represent this district? Is your family better off? Is the value of your house better than it was? Are your prospects better? Is your quality of life better? If the answer to these questions is yes, if you're happy with his service, by all means vote for him. But if the answer is no, then I would respectfully request that you consider voting for someone whose policies are different. This is not just a choice between 2 men or between parties or between who's more articulate than the other. This is a fundamental question of personal and public professional philosophy. My philosophy is that we should work together, that we should be on the same team, that we should stop treating each other as the enemy. So that's one. The second thing I would ask you to consider is, what is your responsibility in this? We talk about issues like health care and transportation and so forth. We are not just beneficiaries of our government. The government is us, and we each have a responsibility to do our part. That includes contacting your representatives. If you're unhappy with what your government is doing, please participate. Pick up the phone, send an email message, and insist that they respond. One of my opponent's biggest shortcomings, from what I've heard for the last year, is that he's not responsive. People write, people call, and they don't hear back from him. So if you have this same experience, then I would again respectfully request that you choose someone who has made a career of responding to people. As a journalist, I've made my livelihood by listening to others and by representing honestly what others think. It's not about me, it's about all of us. And the last thing that I would say in defense of my candidacy is that I am not a career politician. My opponent has spent essentially his whole adult life as a partisan politician. He was essentially handed the job. Yes, he had a sandwich shop for a few years, but he quit after it didn't work out. So if you want someone who is dedicated, if you want someone who has had a wide variety of life experience, of world experience, and someone who is committed to doing what is best, not just for a party, not just for wealthy campaign contributors, not just for himself, then I would respectfully request that you consider voting for me. My name is Terry Phillips. I am on your side, and I will do my best to do what is best for all of us.
Terry, we want to thank you so much for your time this morning, but one thing I definitely want to resonate that, it doesn't matter who you vote for. Make the smart choices, but please vote. Your vote is important, you're powerful, you can't change nothing without voting. It is just like that, I always share this just a little the funny stuff that this person who has done all the religious work on all his life, and then he went broke by helping other people. So one day he was passing by this gas station. He saw the big sign. There's a lottery. It was $160 million. So he goes in front of the Lord and gets on the knees. Said, "Big Lord, this is your time to help me. Please make me the winner of that $160 million lottery." The voice came from the sky: "Buy a ticket before idiot." So the moral of the story is, you need to vote. We need to do our responsibility and let the responsible people do their responsibility. With this, I would like to thank you very much and wish you best of the best. I think you're going to make a good senator. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good congressman.
One step at a time.
One step at a time.